When it comes to movies, animated movies tend to be my favorite kind. It comes to the point where I used to have a huge bias against anything remotely live action as a kid. Hell, I still have a huge bias to this day, just not as strong. It's kind of the reason why this channel is what it is. I and other members of the animation review community can't thank all the big name animation studios enough for what we are today. Disney, DreamWorks, Studio Ghibli, even Sony as well, we all give so much of our praise to. Except there's one animation studio that has received a lot of criticism for years now, and I want to talk about it. Illumination, anyone? Whenever Illumination is brought up, it's usually not in a positive light. For years, Illumination has been subject to ridicule by moviegoers. They are the studio responsible for the Minions and 2 mediocre Dr. Seuss adaptations, yet they managed to be one of the most financially successful studios at the current moment. So why is it that they're so hated by many? I am here to explain by going through the history of their cinematography. Let's go. So Illumination was founded in 2007, and 3 years later, they would go on to release their first film, Despicable Me. A movie about a villain who plans on stealing the moon, but he has to steal a shrink ray first so he can shrink the moon to steal it. He ends up adopting 3 orphan girls as part of his plan of stealing the shrink ray. Throughout the film, he ends up growing emotionally attached to the 3 girls he adopted, and in the end, he ends up giving up on being a villain to raise his new daughters. Now, in my opinion, Despicable Me is a great movie, and I think May can agree that it was a great start to Illumination as a studio, and the box office numbers prove it as a big success. In 2011, Illumination made Hop. I do not remember what it was about. It was a live-action mixed with animation film and the only one Illumination would make. It did alright in the box office, but still to this day is Illumination's lowest earning film. In 2012, Illumination made The Lorax, an adaptation of the Dr. Seuss book of the same name. This film would end up receiving criticism for its hypocritical use of the original book's theme of anti-colonialism and hamming in its environmental message. Despite this movie did end up getting its old cult following, for reasons. Now, despite Illumination's 2 films after Despicable Me not being well received critically, the public didn't start judging Illumination Studios as a whole quite yet. In 2013, Illumination released Despicable Me 2, a sequel to their first film, Despicable Me. Despicable Me 2 was a huge success in the box office, making more than the first film did. Unfortunately, this is when we started to see what I call Minion Fever. It was an era where the comic reliefs of the Despicable Me franchise, the Minions, were seen everywhere. From commercials to toys to Facebook memes, you couldn't avoid them. To top it off, Minion Fever began the same year Frozen came out to theaters, so the next couple of years were not good for children's consumerism. Which leads us to 2 years later where Illumination would give the Minions their own spin-off movie. And I may be the first to say this, but Minions isn't as aggressively bad as most say it is. But I'm not here to discuss my opinions on these films. If you want my opinions on these movies, I can do a ranking video for these movies. But what I'm supposed to do right now is describe the history of the studio and pinpoint when their reputation fell. And here is where I can exactly pinpoint where... Illumination started to get judged as a whole. Not only were people getting sick of Minion Fever, but the Minions movie only felt like it was adding on to the epidemic than be an actual movie. It was a cash grab is what I'm trying to say. While it was a cash grab, it was a very successful cash grab. Not just that, but it is the studio's most financially successful animated film to date. It's even getting a sequel released this year, after many delays of course. In 2016, Illumination would release 2 films, starring their next 2 franchises other from Despicable Me, The Secret Life of Pets and Sing. Both of these films did amazingly well in the box office. Not as well as Minions, but it's still easy to see why both of these movies received sequels through Illumination sides, of course. However, these two movies did receive criticism for targeting only the children and not appealing to adults as well. 1 year later, in 2017, Illumination released the conclusion to their most successful franchise, Despicable Me, with Despicable Me 3. This conclusion would be their second biggest success next to Minions. However, it would be criticized for being unnecessary and a way for Illumination to milk the Despicable Me franchise. In 2018, Illumination would make their first animated Dr. Seuss adaptation since The Lorax from 2012. That adaptation would be How the Grinch Stole Christmas, or The Grinch as it's officially called. This film would be advertised everywhere before its release, and it got annoying quickly. Anyways, like the other Illumination films, it was a box office success. However, it was criticized for similar reasons as The Lorax, with the movie dumbing down the original story and making it more of a complete product than the movie. In 2019, Illumination released a sequel to one of their 2016 movies, The Secret Life of Pets, with The Secret Life of Pets 2. Nothing much to say about this one. Moving on. Just recently, at the end of 2021, Illumination released a sequel to their other 2016 film, Sing, with Sing 2. Since its release, I've seen some mixed opinions. Is Sing too good? Tell me in the comments. And that's all for their filmography at the current moment. Illumination has yet to release Minions, The Rise of Gru, and that Mario movie with Chris Pratt playing Mario. And at the time of writing the script, Illumination has announced 2 upcoming films for 2023 and 2024. This one movie called Migration, which I'm a bit curious about, and Despicable Me 4. I take back the part of this video where I said Despicable Me 3 was the conclusion to the Despicable Me franchise. So to answer the question this video is titled after, why is Illumination so hated? I believe it's not that most of their films are bad. In fact, a bunch of their films fall into the average to mediocre valley. Instead, it's the fact that a majority of their films lack creativity or inspiration. And yet, each of the studio's films are successes at the box office, and that creates a toxic mindset. That you don't have to try and make a good movie for it to be a success at the box office. And that's a harmful mindset to have. It's also the reason why we should appreciate studios like Pixar, who are still making creative and inventive animated films, with the exception of Cars 2, of course. I'm going to end this video on one last hopeful sentence. At least Illumination doesn't support NFTs.